Welcome back to the KOCT Roundtable. Our next guest is the former longtime mayor of San Marcos and now the San Diego County Supervisor for the 5th District, Jim Desmond. He represents all of us who live in Oceanside, Carlsbad, Vista, and San Marcos, plus all the way out to the unincorporated areas of Valley Center and Julian, and even out to Anza Borrego. So, Supervisor Desmond, thank you so much for coming in.
Allison, great to be here with you.
So now you've been on the job for about a year now, and there's been a lot of activity in the County Board of Supervisors on mental health, so let's start right there. Here in North County, Tri-City closed its psychiatric, crisis stabilization unit, and now it looks like something is happening. Tell us, what is the county doing for mental health in North County?
Well, we're doing quite a bit. In Tri-City, to start with, it had just shut down before I got elected, and one of the things I did is I got together with the Tri-City board, Palomar Hospital board, and tried to figure out a path here for North County. And what we were able to do at the county is we provided $17 million towards the building of behavioral health beds and to reopen those beds at Tri-City Hospital. Those are construction dollars. It's going to take about a couple of years or so to get that building built, but we did that. So we're going to get those beds back and opened up again. I think that's about 16 beds. We're also in the process of opening up 2 crisis stabilization units, and these are where the police officers can take someone if they're having an episode or trauma or things like that. And a crisis stabilization unit, people can be held there for up to 24 hours, get people stabilized, get them on their medications, get them a shower, and get them back on their feet.
And this was key because the police were often spending hours taking them down to San Diego. Where are these stabilization centers?
Well, the ones that we're proposing, they're still in the works, but we're moving along quite quickly. The first one I think that's going to be opening up first is in Oceanside, and that's going to be at the Live Well Center on Mission Avenue. So we're taking an existing county building in our space and putting in a crisis stabilization unit. And these are actually chairs. They're called chairs. Because so someone sits in a big easy chair and gets back on gets hopefully healed and back on their feet and then back out on the streets. The other one is in the city of Vista. So in the city of Vista, so we got 2 going right now. Carlsbad's actually looking at potentially as well, but that's a little bit further up. But definitely Vista and Oceanside for right now.
So is the county doing this sort of independently of the hospitals, which have been dealing with this kind of service in the past? I mean, is the county beginning to take initiatives without consulting the community so much as to where to place these facilities?
Not so much, but I mean, we're working with the hospitals. We're trying to we're looking at a region-wide system to have different hubs throughout the county for behavioral health. There's going to be one in downtown, in the San Diego area and Hillcrest. The hub in North County is going to be actually Palomar Hospital, but also as an ancillary hospital as part of that is going to be Tri-City. Okay. And it's the reason it's Palomar because Palomar has both a crisis stabilization unit and behavioral health beds. We're only going to have behavioral health beds at Tri-City, but the crisis stabilization unit we're looking at putting at the Vista Courthouse. And the reason we're doing that, we're putting them at both at county properties initially. These are the first ones in North County. And quite frankly, we want to set the example that the county themselves, we're willing to put it on our own properties to make sure, that these things go well, we can iron out any bugs, and then we can start putting them in other parts of the community. But in addition, another thing we're actually doing is we're opening up a family justice center in the city of San Marcos. In a family justice center is where, unfortunately battered women or that, maybe are kicked out of the house or they're having problems. This is a place they can go in San Marcos for sort of a one-stop shop to, get restraining orders if they need to, get housing if they need to, get clothing, help with their children and things like that. So
it's a kind of resource center for North County residents in trouble in the areas that the county is responsible
for domestic problems and trouble. And also now the city of Carlsbad is actually putting in some housing for veterans that are housings that actually have programs that help get the veterans back on their feet. And so there's 2 different houses, and they each going to have 24 people in the house, and they're like studio apartments, but there's going to be like a central meeting room where they have programs put on, and I think the county is going to be paying for the providers of those programs or the veterans of services. And so it's going to be a house not where people just come up and get fed or things like that, but this is primarily for veterans and providing them not only with housing but with programs to help them to get back on their feet.
Well, traditionally the county has provided more programs and not been so much about bricks and mortar, but it sounds like you're doing both now, providing facilities and putting in personnel. What about the PERT teams? You know, we've heard so many...
we've added somewhat. PERT is the psychiatric emergency response teams, and there's also HEART teams, which is the homeless advocacy and outreach teams. So we're actually in this we just did a board letter at the county, put forwarded 2 days ago, to add more officers and more people to those teams and increase the number of those teams throughout the county so that they can go out and work with individuals directly on the streets. And for those that want help, we can help them get into programs and hopefully housing.
Okay, so the county is putting millions of their budget
into
mental health. Do you think North County is getting its fair share?
Absolutely. We're actually kind of leading the county in as far as getting these programs in shape. The $17 million at Tri-City, the 2 CSUs. There's no other CSUs in San Diego except for down at Rosecrans, which is a county facility, but we're the first ones to put in community CSUs. The county has not had a family justice center. There's one in San Diego run by the city of San Diego, and that's coming into North County. So actually there's still another piece of the puzzle, and to me that's transitional housing. Yeah. Housing, and a lot of the people that are homeless, and if they're willing to get help, we don't really have the housing to put them in. Right. And a lot of them can't even afford affordable housing. So we're looking at a model of transitional housing, which is like the veterans housing in Carlsbad. And that transitional housing then will hopefully, after they get out of the crisis stabilization unit or after they get out of the behavioral health beds, they go back in the streets. And so
the county's actually building this?
Well, we are looking at those types. Actually, I just 2 days ago also, as part of the county meeting, I asked for, we're doing it in the unincorporated areas and all of District 5 to inventory and see what county properties we have available to potentially put this type of transitional housing in and get that moving.
Let's talk a little bit about transit, because that's another thing that is a very big issue in North County, is that people are concerned that, for example, Sandag is spending millions on bike lanes and
billions.
Billions on bike lanes and not improving or widening Highway 76. Now, why is it, bearing in mind that the county has to obey the state mandates to cut down on carbon emissions, and so we have to be moving to public transit? How do you balance that? Why is it that you have been opposed to the way that Sandag wants to move money away from roads and into public transit? Well,
I get it. Well, we need a balanced system or a balanced program, and we do need to meet the state's greenhouse gases and their requirements. But I think we can still do it with a balanced plan. I'm not against transit. I mean, transit works well in the urban core. So maybe in San Diego it works very well. Us out on the peripherals, the 78, the 52, the 67, there's still areas that we're going to need roads. And Sandag's, even with their five big, bold moves for transit, their goal is to get 10% of the people using transit. Right now, 3% of the people in San Diego County use transit. They're trying to get it to 10. That leaves 90% of us still on the roads. And goods and services also have to move on these roads and highways. And we just, we just had an agreement. The president announced the agreement with Mexico and Canada, trade agreements. There's going to be a lot more goods movement coming across the border from Mexico, coming up straight up the I-5 and the I-15. And so we still need roads. So I'm not anti-transit, I'm not anti-bicycle. I just want to make sure that we, in North County and East County, the peripherals, not the urban core areas, but that we get also our fair share of our roads and infrastructure, because we still need that. So I'm just looking for more of a balanced plan instead of a one side takes all, and that's the track that Sandag's been on. So
when will 78 get widened, do you think?
I'm hoping in my lifetime.
Okay.
And really, here's what we're trying to do in the 78. The 78, all we're trying to do is put HOV lanes across the 78. Right now, HOV lanes are coming up the 5 to the 78. The 15 has HOV lanes up the 15 to the 78. It makes sense to connect those HOV lanes across the 78 to the 5 and the 15.
Let's talk quickly about development, because one of the issues on the March ballot is this Measure B, which is Newland Sierra, which is in fact in San Marcos, your backyard, just north of San Marcos, should we say, in the unincorporated area there.
Yes.
So this would provide 2,000 new homes. People who are opposed to it, though, say we shouldn't be sprawling out into the unincorporated, semi-rural areas. We should be building where we have the roads in the cities. Why do you support sprawl?
Well, I think that's a loaded question to say. I support housing. I support housing, and we have a huge shortage. And that Newland Sierra project is right on the 15, which is a huge unused source of infrastructure. And I hear that part of the state's mandates are to cut down on vehicle miles traveled. A lot of our workforce lives in Riverside County because we have forced them out. We have forced our workforce out further and further, and they have to drive from Riverside County down to San Diego. They make their money down here, but they spend their money and pay their taxes in Riverside County. We keep pushing people further and further out. So to say that I'm an advocate for sprawl, I don't think is fair. But to say I'm an advocate for housing where infrastructure exists is really what Newland Sierra is, and building housing for people that work and live here in San Diego County. So it's along the 15 corridor, along that piece of infrastructure. And I think, no project is perfect, and it never will be. But that project's right along a major piece of infrastructure.
Okay. You have to understand it's my job to ask you devil's advocate questions, and then
that's
you
okay.
give us the answers.
Well, and it's my job to make my points as well. So that's fine.
So the other big issue about this
Sure.
Measure B is the fact that it does not include any affordable housing. Do you regret that?
I wish it had some affordable housing component to it, but it doesn't. And we need this increases the housing inventory, which I think, everything's a supply and demand. I mean, the housing prices are going up. Everybody loves the fact that their property values are going up, but it's mostly a supply and demand. So we need more housing. And quite frankly, in the unincorporated areas, the state also has required regional housing needs assessment, ARENA, we call it, down at Sandag, to where we have to build 5,000, and the last number was 6,700 more housing units. So that would be 3 Newland Sierras. And if we can't get one done, how would we expect to meet the state requirements if we can't get one done to have the requirements for 3?
I have to ask you also about Measure A, which
Okay.
of course is about the county's general plan, which spent more than a decade consulting the public as to where they thought we should build. And now basically Measure A would say if developers want to build in a place that your general plan says they shouldn't, it has to go to a vote of the people. You oppose that, I believe. Why?
Well, and it's not so much that where they shouldn't build. The general plan is both general and a plan. And so it's not in stone. And part of the general plan, it does allow up to 4 general plan amendments every year. And a lot of the housing projects, if you were just to build housing where it's just spread out everywhere, one house per 15 acres or things like that, developers actually look and consolidate land and then try to consolidate that housing. So maybe they've got 100 acres and you only use 20 acres or 30 acres of that land to build housing. The rest is left to open space. Well, that 20 to 30 acres needs a general plan amendment because it's not zoned, that particular site of land is not zoned for.
And that's what the county supervisors would have to provide.
And that's what we would come in, and then we would say, okay, it makes sense. Newland Sierra is a great example as well. They're consolidating all of these properties into one area, which actually makes it cheaper for infrastructure, makes it less intrusive on the environment because you consolidate the housing and you keep open space around it. So there's general plan amendments are not wrong. They're part of the tool in the toolbox, and they realize that even though this general plan was done, it took a decade to do it, but it's also a decade old. And Uber and Lyft, and there was a lot of technology advances that have happened since. And this clustering of homes is actually a smart idea, but it needs a general plan amendment.
Okay, really good to get your perspective, and we very much appreciate you coming in.
Well, thank you very much.
Desmond.